On April 10, 2018, President Xi Jinping attended the annual conference of the Boao Forum for Asia, declaring in front of the whole world China's determination to continuously advance the reform and opening up.
1978年，邓小平先生倡导，以中共11届三中全会为标志，中国开启了改革开放的历史的征程。40年众志成城，40年砥砺奋进，40年春风化雨。中国人民用双手书写了国家和民族发展的壮丽史诗。
Certain profound memories always come to be associated with special periods of history. One such memory for the Chinese people concerns a great turning point in the CPC's history since the founding of the People's Republic of China. On January 1st, 1978, the People's Daily published a New Year's Day editorial entitled Bright China. The opening paragraph was especially eye-catching for readers.
1977年，世界上各种各样的人，包括我们的一些朋友和同志，也包括我们的敌人，都在密切注视着中国。在粉碎了四人帮以后，中国会向何处去？
It was an historic moment. China reached a fork in the road. Would the country follow the old path of the past, or blaze a new path to socialism in line with China's concrete realities? This was the major issue facing the CPC. Where indeed would China go? People were full of expectation. Deng Xiaoping's comeback had given people hope. On July 17, 1977, after many vicissitudes, the 73-year-old Deng Xiaoping resumed his leadership role.
出来工作可以有两种态度，一个是主观，一个是主在工作。我想，既然是共产党员，既然当了，也不能够主观，不能够有私心杂念，不能够有别的选择。
After his comeback, Deng voluntarily took charge of science and education. He was particularly concerned of the state of education. China's science, technology and education lagged at least 20 years behind developed countries, he reflected bitterly. In August 1977, Deng invited 33 nationally renowned experts, professors and educators to a symposium on scientific and educational work held at the Great Hall of the People.
坐下来以后呢，小文就先问了一个问题，我想问一下，我看看这在座的比我年龄大的有几位啊？举举手，一举手大概有2、3位，我看有希望。比我大的只有2、3位，那么咱们这个会呢就从这儿入手。我们这次座谈会的主要内容就是怎么把科学技术教育搞上去。
At this meeting, Judge Wenxing, a professor from Wuhan University, proposed reinstating the National College Entrance Examination. This proposal was strongly supported.
所以我在这次会议上呢，就把这个问题、把这个情况啊，向小云同志汇报了一下啊，困难都是建议来恢复高考。我讲了以后呢，小云同志就说今年恐怕来不及了吧，这样一个情况。 他说了这个之后呢，我们就说今年还来得及。你假如说是1年能够早一点纠正过来了，就是个关心的几十万人的问题。
After hearing this, Deng restarted the National College Entrance Examination system after a lapse of 11 years. The scientists and educators were thrilled. Young people, especially those around 30 years old, whose education had been interrupted by the Cultural Revolution, were excited to hear the news. $5.7 million people participated in that year's examination. In spring the following year, 273,000 people became college students. Many of them would later become leaders in various fields after the reform and opening up. Spring 1978 was full of passion and hope, a time of happiness and laughter. During the Spring Festival, 60% of employees across the country received a pay rise. It wasn't much, but people's lives began to get better. Furthermore, some old domestically produced films, banned for years, could finally be shown again. After an absence of many years, folklore and traditional activities also returned to people's lives. Knowledge and education once again became the focus of attention for the party and the country. Meanwhile, national conferences on science and education were held. It was springtime for the country's development in science and education.
4个现代化，关键是科学技术的现代化。正确认识科学技术是生产力，正确认识为社会主义服务的脑力劳动者是劳动人民的一部分，这对于发展我国科学事业有极其密切的关系。
小平同志讲话的时候，在场的70、80岁的老科学家都是含着热泪啊，在那里鼓掌，那个是激动万分，就觉得过去多少年啊，一直受着压抑的心情，而现在听小平同志讲话，真正是科学的春天，知识界的春天到来。
从臭老九变成工人阶级一部分，在政治上得到了新一次解放，所以非常激动。因为听到科学技术是现代化的关键，那我觉得我的政治科学的生涯又重生了，憋了多少年的劲儿都爆发出来了。
After the science conference, nuclear physicist Chen Jia-er returned to work in research and teaching. Within a few years, Chen's team assembled China's first 4.5 MV electrostatic accelerator. Later, they would celebrate even more cutting-edge achievements in the field of accelerators. In this spring, Guo Moruo, then president of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, expressed all scientists' feelings with his passionate words.
这是革命的春天，这是人民的春天，这是 科学的春天。让我们张开双臂，热烈地拥抱这个春天吧。
In 1978, China's diplomatic initiatives also expanded rapidly. In May, Vice Premier Gu Mu led a Chinese economic delegation to 5 countries in Western Europe. This was the first high-level economic delegation to the West of China's open door era. For the delegates, this overseas venture was a genuine eye-opener. Meanwhile, Deng also made frequent trips to learn about the outside world. In Japan, he witnessed the economic, technological, and management gulf between the two countries. Catching up was a task of the utmost urgency.
怎么样？这个从新干线以后有什么想法？
就感觉到快。
速いと思います。
有催人跑的意思。
追いかけられて走ってるような気がします。
所以我们现在更合适了，做这个。我们现在正合适做这样。
As people's lives changed, so too did their ideas. This period of change saw the birth of a widely influential article. On May 10, 1978, the party school of the CPC Central Committee issued in its internal journal the article, "Practice is the sole criterion for testing truth." On May 11th, Guangming Daily, one of China's leading state newspapers, published the article, and Xinhua News Agency distributed it nationwide. In the following days, People's Daily, PLA Daily, and dozens of major newspapers across the country reprinted it. The article proposed a simple and profound viewpoint. There is only one criterion for testing truth: the social practice of millions of people. An excerpt from the article says, "It's wrong to use the ready-made provisions of Marxism, Leninism, and Mao Zedong thought, or the ready-made formulas to restrict, slaughter, and tailor the infinitely rich and rapidly developing revolutionary practice."
一看到这个《光明日报》发表这篇文章，那确实大家觉得很解决问题，这就使大家觉得这个有了武器了，对解放思想、拨乱反正起了很大的作用。
这场深刻而广泛的思想解放运动，成为正本清源、拨乱反正和改革开放的思想先导。
Discussion of the truth criterion was openly supported by Deng Xiaoping and other veteran party members. On June 2, 1978, Deng delivered a key speech at the All-Army Conference on Political Work, calling on everyone to set wrong things right, break mental shackles, and free the mind. Later, a wider discussion developed across the whole of society. Central and provincial newspapers published over 650 relevant articles, spearheading a nationwide campaign to promote ideological emancipation. In September 1978, Deng inspected 3 northeastern provinces and Tianjin. Along the way, he said he was igniting everywhere, talking about emancipating the mind, seeking truth from facts, and thinking independently and creatively. He also suggested that the efforts of the whole party and country be focused on modernization, laying a good ideological foundation for the subsequent CPC Central Work Conference and the third plenary session of the 11th CPC Central Committee.
小平同志他呢，这几年的讲话，什么叫高举毛泽东思想红旗的？他的核心也是讲实事求是，还是讲要恢复呢我们党的实事求是的这个思想路线。
Jingxi Hotel, built in 1959, has witnessed major historical moments of the CPC over the past 6 decades. On November 10, 1978, this hotel witnessed over 200 senior cadres gathering for the CPC Central Work Conference. The first item on the agenda was shifting the focus of all work.
要接触文化大革命，那种困难状况要转移到生产建设战线上来。
This item was unanimously approved. During a group discussion, veteran CPC leader Chun Yun suggested that, to realize the shift, the country should systematically address the problems left over from the past, including those from the Cultural Revolution.
陈云同志这个讲了在东北族有一篇发言，叫做“有错必纠”。他这篇话一讲了以后的时候啊，全体参加会议的人呢，群情激愤。
我们还是按照那个2个范式来办事情，我们经济的生活的是根本没有办法恢复。
Chun Yun's speech elicited strong responses from other groups, strengthening the call to re-establish the CPC's ideological line on seeking truth from facts. It was under these circumstances that Deng delivered a closing speech entitled "Emancipate the Mind, Seek Truth from Facts, and Unite as One in Looking to the Future."
一个党、一个国家、一个民族，如果一切从本出发，思想僵化、迷信盛行，那它就不能前进，它的生机就停止了，就要亡党亡国。如果现在再不实行改革，我们的现代化事业和社会主义事业就会被葬送。
This current of mental emancipation dispelled the fog of confusion that plagued the Chinese people at that time, clearly signposting the future course of China's development, and hailed as the de facto keynote report of the subsequent third plenary session of the 11th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. On December 18th to the 22nd, the third plenary session of the 11th CPC Central Committee took place. Reaffirming the ideological line of seeking truth from facts, it repudiated the erroneous notion of taking class struggle as the key link, and confirmed the shift of emphasis towards the construction of socialist modernization. It was also at this meeting that the crucial policy of reform and opening up was decided upon, marking a significant turning point in the party's history. After this session, the task of correcting unjust, false and wrong cases proceeded apace. The CPC Central Committee approved rehabilitation in over 30 major cases involving senior leaders. Between 1978 and 1982, there were a total of over 3 million instances of rehabilitation nationwide. More than 470,000 party members regained their party membership, and tens of millions of affected people were vindicated and had their peace of mind restored. However, during this process, a few alarming tendencies were noted. So, at a forum on the Principles for the Party's Theoretical Work held in March 1979, Deng delivered a speech entitled Uphold the Four Cardinal Principles.
第一，必须坚持社会主义道路；第二，必须坚持无产阶级专政；第三，必须坚持共产党的领导；第四，必须坚持马列主义毛泽东思想。如果动摇了这4条基本原则的任何一条，那就动摇了整个社会主义事业，整个现代化事业。
The full-scale corrective measures proceeded under the CPC's leadership. Programmatic documents guiding the party's internal politics and governance were issued one after another. In November of this year, under Deng's personal leadership, a drafting group was established to prepare the resolution on certain questions in the history of our party since the founding of the People's Republic of China. The resolution would contain final conclusions in order for the whole party and people to move on in unison. During the drafting and revision of the resolution, Deng emphasized the importance of correctly evaluating the historical status of Mao Zedong and Mao Zedong thought.
到了80年的3月，拿出草稿的时候，他看了，他说不行。如果我们不写，或者不写好这一部分，整个主义不如不做。81年，陈云同志说要加一部分写建国以前28年的历史，毛泽东的功绩贡献就很全面了。那么坚持和发展毛泽东思想呢，也就有了全面的依据了。小平同志说这个意见很好。
While the resolution was being drafted, in August 1980, Deng granted 2 interviews to Italian journalist Oriana Fallaci, an exception from his normal practice. His intent was to convey a key message. The CPC would not denounce Mao Zedong.
法拉奇他说这个现在呢，我这次到中国来呢，发现中国的变化很大，人们的衣着有变化，而且毛主席的像也挂得少了。天安门城楼上还挂着毛主席像，这个像是不是要挂下去？邓小平同志说是要永远挂下去，不会拆下来。不仅是我们要挂毛主席的像，要永远纪念毛主席，而且我们还要坚持毛泽东的思想。
In June 1981, the resolution on certain questions in the history of our party since the founding of the People's Republic of China was adopted at the 6th Plenary Session of the 11th CPC Central Committee, completely denouncing the Cultural Revolution and preceding left mistakes. It also presented a scientific assessment of the historical status of Mao and Mao Zedong thought, playing an inestimable role in unifying the whole party, encouraging the whole country to look ahead, and striving to build socialism. This key document marked a victory for the CPC in setting its guiding principles right.
没有毛主席，就没有新中国。这丝毫不是什么夸张。毛泽东思想培育了我们整整一代人，没有毛泽东思想，就没有今天的中国共产党。
Under the leadership of the CPC, with Deng as a main representative, the whole nation and the Chinese were guided to a great historic turning point. During this period, reform was on the agenda every day, driven by free minds and creativity, passion and entrepreneurship. China advanced toward prosperity.
从长夜到日出，走过千山万水的路，每一步都是信仰足迹，烙印下新中国版图。从贫弱到富强，走出复兴，为业征途，每一天都有奋斗牺牲，只为人民拥抱幸福，凭着心中坚定信念，敢叫日月换新天，循关漫道，风雨无阻，汇聚起中华儿女同向前。从贫弱到富强，走出复兴，为业征途。